Let's return now to that news that the disgraced Hollywood film producer Harvey Weinstein has had his 2020 sex crime conviction overturned by New York's top court. We can speak now to Jane Manning, the director of the Women's Equal Justice Project and a former sex crimes prosecutor, joining us now from Washington. Thanks very much for being with us. What's your reaction to this development?
I think the development is a really disheartening and shocking blow to the Me Too movement, to the ability of women and survivors to seek justice in the wake of sexual assault, and to our sense of equal justice in the New York State court system.
In terms of what has been said, we don't have a huge amount of detail yet, but we've been hearing that the Court of Appeals basically said that he did not receive a fair trial because prosecutors were allowed to call witnesses whose accusations were not part of the charges against him. So is it sort of, would you describe that as technicalities, or how would you describe that?
Well, when Harvey Weinstein was tried in New York State court, there were 3 women that he was charged with sexually assaulting. And there were approximately 100 other women that said that he had also sexually assaulted them. Of those approximately 100 women, 3 of them were allowed to come into court and testify to the jury to establish a pattern of behavior by Harvey Weinstein. And today, the New York State Court of Appeals said that that evidence was impermissible, that it was too prejudicial, that it should not have been admitted in Harvey Weinstein's trial.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he is currently in prison. It's been a very high-profile case, and this is going to go to a retrial. And any jury that is selected will have heard of this case and seen the other convictions.
And we don't know for certain whether it will go to a retrial. The first step will be for Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg to speak to the 2 women that Weinstein was convicted of assaulting, and to listen to their feelings about whether they're willing to go through the difficult experience of testifying in a sexual assault trial. If they are willing and ready to go forward with a retrial, then it is certainly my hope that the district attorney will retry the case.
Yeah, so they could potentially have to go through the whole process all over again, a whole trial. They wouldn't be able to use anything from the previous trial from the 2 women.
No, that's exactly right. It would be as if the first trial and the first convictions that came out of that trial never happened. The record would be wiped of that conviction.
And in terms of the difference that this made to the Me Too movement, I mean, this was a really significant moment, wasn't it, back in 2020?
It was terribly significant when he was convicted. It was proof to the world that a powerful man who had been able to evade the law for many years had finally been brought to justice through the power of women who came together and raised their voices and literally said, "Me too." It's not just this one woman, it's all of us. And it's so ironic that that very message, the idea that it's not one victim, it's multiple victims, is the basis for the ruling that the Court of Appeals issued today, striking down these convictions. I think it's really important to understand that the Court of Appeals did not have to reach this result. This was a chief judge who is known for being extremely anti-prosecution, and looking for ways to reverse convictions. And it's also important to note that this was a 4-3 ruling. But 2 of those 4 judges who comprised the majority were not permanent members of the Court of Appeals. They were handpicked by the chief judge when 2 permanent judges recused themselves from this particular case. And it was those 2 stand-in members of the court who gave the chief judge the majority that he wanted in order to overturn this conviction. Of the members, the permanent members of the court, who voted on this ruling, a majority of them voted to sustain the conviction. I think that's an important piece of the history of this ruling.
Just as a general question, when it comes to claims about sex crimes, what are the conviction rates in the US at the moment? Because they are staggeringly low in a lot of countries, aren't they?
They're staggeringly low in a lot of countries, and certainly in the US as well. And what we see is that there's a drop off at every stage of the justice process. Of those survivors who are assaulted, only a minority of them choose to report to the justice system at all because they're afraid of just this kind of result, that they won't get justice at the end of the day. Of the ones who report, only a minority lead to an arrest. Only a minority of those lead to a prosecution. And of those that go forward to a prosecution, only a minority of those result in a conviction and a jail sentence for the perpetrator. And the staggering statistic in the United States is that for every 50 rapes that are committed, only about one of them will result in jail time for the perpetrator. So that's the sorry state of our justice system now. And this ruling in Harvey Weinstein's case today sets us back even farther.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. I really appreciate your time. That's Jane Manning, Director of Women's Equal Justice Project. Thank you to you.
Thank you.